Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. From Nussbaum et al. 2009, hair transplantation for hairline reconstruction is gaining popularity in women with frontotemporal thinning and congenitally high hairlines and those who have undergone cosmetic facial procedures. While many men do suffer from male pattern baldness, the science of hairline restoration is much more rigorous for men than for women. In this video, I'm going to be going over the hairline aesthetics for women, as that is a feature that is far less often discussed, but there will be another separate video for men coming out very soon, so if you haven't subscribed, you really should. If you're a guy, I still recommend you watch this video, as many of the points of widow's peak and temporal recession will still apply to the men. Your hairline does define, or more correctly, frame your face. As a general rule, a higher hairline makes the eyes and nose features appear more masculine. Contrary to that, lowering a hairline helps feminize the face, as it's a neotenous feature, and one thing that's common with most juvenile faces are juvenile hairlines, even if you have particularly masculine nasal and ocular features. Before we start, let's take a quick dive into the common myths that surround female hairlines. And while we're there, take a second to think if you've ever fell victim to these convincing fables. Firstly, there's a myth circulating that 1. Female hairlines are naturally high. As just stated, the opposite is actually true, with the average female hairline starting 5.5 centimeters above the glabella, which is around the middle spot between your two eyebrows, whereas male hairlines will typically begin from 6 to 8 centimeters above the glabella. With that in mind, hairline surgery attempts to reduce the distance between the glabella and the beginning of the hairline or the trichon, and will reduce the size of the forehead, which corresponds to a more feminine face. There is a slight distinction, however, as larger foreheads are a neotenous feature for both men and women. By neotenous, I mean that it resembles more of a baby, so as you can imagine, babies have large rounded foreheads, and if you have a high hairline, then you too will appear to have a large rounded forehead. However, in terms of dimorphic aesthetics, in other words, men looking like men and women looking like women, it's best to have an appropriately sized forehead to your facial thirds, or following the averages of 5.5 and 6 to 8 centimeters for your respective gender. The second myth about female hairlines is that female hairlines have dense hair all the way across. This myth has served to differentiate men from women, with the common myth portraying that men usually lose their hair around the corners of their face, in other words, their temples. In reality, women experience frontotemporal corner hair loss just as readily as men do. The difference between men and women is that for women, the hair only thins out, a process of miniaturization, whereas for men, their hair can miniaturize to become completely invisible due to having higher androgenicity. Regardless of this, for women, the result is wispy and fine hair, which exposes the scalp to both sun damage and makes it more visible, which is what most people are concerned with. With these two myths in mind, let's take a deeper look at the scientific study by Jung and colleagues that defined the different hairline shapes for women and also recommended refined hairline correction techniques by first looking at a female Asian population. The study recognized the reality of a hair transplantation being a highly effective technique in reducing wide foreheads and recontouring the hairline. It utilized data from 234 female volunteers and a further 350 female patients with a wide forehead to classify hairline contours in Asian women and to find a way to make an ideal and refined female hairline. This was done so by classifying the women into 5 main hairline classification groups. If we look here, the round hairline shape, in which roughly 27% of the people have, is characterized by an overall round shape without a significant frontotemporal recess. For context, frontotemporal refers to the top and middle of the forehead, and a recess means that it goes back or recedes at this location. Here, a frontotemporal recess in a round hairline refers to the apparent pushing back of the hairline compared to the head. The M-shaped hairline, found in around 28% of the female participants in this Asian sample, is defined by a deep and retruded frontotemporal recess forming a shape of the letter M. This shape is very typically associated with males because of its masculinizing shape, and it just happens to be the way that most men lose their hair. Next up is the rectangular shaped hairline, also found in around 27% of the female sample, and this is defined by a straight frontotemporal hairline, which is then parallel to the lines of the upper forehead. This shape also has a slight temporal recess, as can be seen here. The fourth main category of the hairline, much less commonly seen in the population at around 10%, is a bell-shaped hairline, and this should be pretty self-explanatory. This shape is characterized by a normal forehead width, but a vertical height that is more than 2 centimeters higher than normal. It's obvious to see in this shape the considerable frontotemporal recesses, and this is the typical shape of a hairline that is balding. Finally, with only 3% of females having this style, is the triangular hair shape, and this is the only shape with no temporal recess and a straight line from the mid-frontal point to the temporal point. While quite uncommon, the hairline can actually be particularly attractive when styled just right. While we're exploring the truth about hairlines and hairstyles, let's all take a second to explore the truth of life, which is, of course, that everyone who wants to keep their hairline looking fresh should probably subscribe to the Koof's channel, otherwise the hairline fairy is going to come and get you. As mentioned earlier, it is the M-shaped hairline that's most commonly associated with males. While certain anomalies may be seen as more or less attractive, a general rule is that for females to be considered the most attractive, quote-unquote, they should have feminine features that show off sexual dimorphism. This is pretty fundamental stuff. This M-shaped hairline is defined by a spot known as the widow's peak. As such, the study sourced 350 females with an M-shaped hairline, defined by the wide forehead with a deep frontotemporal recess, and gave them a hair transplant to correct their hairline. By correcting the triangular areas that are receded the greatest amount, shown here by the triangles A2 to B1 and B1 to A1 on the right side of this particular patient's forehead, the researchers could gain volume to that area, reducing the receded hairline, which in turn reduces the peak of the M point, which is A1 on this diagram, and turning that M-shaped hairline into a round-shaped hairline. Many surgeons in the past have employed a one-size-fits-all preference for the round-shaped hairline, but this isn't actually the preference in an Asian population, as we'll see towards the end of the video. By correcting this frontotemporal recess as well as the temporal area, they managed to create adequate proportions for the forehead and the face. By classifying a wide range of Asian women's hairstyles, these researchers uncovered and practiced one such surgical method that could be used not only as a reference for women with a wider than average forehead who are then considering a hair transplant, but also for hair restoration surgery to create a stronger facial balance. Going back to Nussbaum et al.'s study from the beginning of the video, they looked at a Caucasian sample and found that female hairlines exhibited cowlicks more frequently than men. They also used a different method of classifying temporal recession into a concave and convex group, and most importantly for you, however, are the guidelines that they developed in response to their research for hair transplantation surgeons to follow. The widow's peak should be about 5.5 to 6 centimeters from the glabella, similar to the other study I mentioned earlier. The lateral mounds, which are these horn-like eminences created by the temporal recession, are defined to be around 4 centimeters from the frontal midpoint, and the temporal recession is most commonly some variation of the concave shape, which is in accordance to the other studies we've seen and their samples. Convex and straight shapes like this are actually quite rare, and they're a characteristic of a juvenile hairline, much like that of a young teenage boy or a young adult woman. And so, due to their rarity, they have a higher prevalence in modeling standards. From these examples, we see straight and convexes as far as the eye can see, with the exception of a few such faces, like Bella Hadid, who has a concave triangular shape. IMG model Iris Law literally has the hairline of a 13-year-old with almost negative temporal recession. Despite one type being more common in the population, as with many things in modeling, if that's your benchmark for beauty, the uncommon facial traits are often deemed more desirable. Mind you, this particular study looked at Caucasians and previous one looked at Asians, so I don't think this necessarily applies to black women. There's an even mix of black models such as Elek Wek with a heavy temporal recession and Marie Fofana with very little. In my experience, temporal recession is a maturing face feature in the sense that it matures and sophisticates a face. Faces with incredibly juvenile hairlines give the face an expectedly childlike appearance. On the other hand, faces with an appropriate amount of temporal recession, most of which is caused by natural androgenicity, can make a face look older but much more refined. Even Audrey Hepburn had temporal recession, and that works perfectly fine with her aesthetic. The difference between her and the average person is that her hair had plenty of density and her hairline did not recede a single inch from her young 20s. If you do have thinning or increasingly wispy hair near your frontal region, or that your temples extend beyond what you would like them to, then it may be worth considering visiting your doctor, as often these are lifestyle indicators such as stress. To answer the question, the demand for hair transplantation surgery has greatly increased in women. While many women naturally develop the appropriate hairline for their face, perhaps it's due to the microplastics in our diet or residual hormones left in the water, excess hairline miniaturization is becoming increasingly common. In other words, the temples are recessing past what is normal, and this is partly why women are getting more transplants than ever to restore their natural hairline. Another partial contributor is with current beauty standards, where most women in modeling and on screen seem to have a disproportionate number of juvenile hairlines. This obviously influences beauty trends, whether consciously or subconsciously, and so the desire to mimic their hairline is an entirely legitimate concern. Although circumstantial, Park et al.'s 2014 study found that Koreans preferred the M shape, followed by the rectangular shape, the round, and then lastly the triangular hairline. Previously, I did mention that the M shape is associated with a more masculine look, because that tends to be how men also go through their cycles of hair loss, their male pattern baldness, and so really there is no definitive answer on what the best hairline should be, because as you can see, while it may be more masculinizing, the Koreans tend to prefer that on their women. From this study, they also preferred figure 2b of a 2:1 ratio between the lower mid-face to the upper face, and unsurprisingly, excessively large foreheads were the least preferred, and this correlates to surgical hair data, which shows many women getting a hairline reduction to reduce the forehead height rather than trying to change their hairline shape. This preference for the M shape follows back to what I mentioned before about temporal recession creating a more refined look, up to a reasonable point obviously, and this is shown in the separate survey where the Korean men did not prefer the overly juvenile hairlines. Having sufficient hair density near the temples seems to be much more important than worrying about what type of hairline you have. If you've stayed till the end of this video, then I ask you to just stay another 30 seconds to hear about the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. You may have heard about Squarespace from other channels, but they give you a powerful and beautiful online platform from which to create your own website. If you're a content creator like me, this is very beneficial as they can take care of the back end, which allows you to connect to your audience, generate revenue through members-only content, or leverage your audience insights and manage email campaigns, all on the one platform. Also, they have plenty of e-commerce capabilities through the use of Squarespace extensions, which allows you to bring in third-party tools to manage inventory, streamline bookkeeping, and market your products. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace/KuStudio to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or a domain.